Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Why Community Matters webinar series. I'm Judy Gordon, and I'm the VP of Marketing for OmniSparx. Today, we're speaking with Franklin Fitch, who's from Beaxy Exchange. Hey, Franklin.
Hey, everybody.
Talking about branding and marketing research hacks. Before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about the sponsors. OmniSparx is a community engagement platform driving crypto project growth. For more information, visit omnisparx.io. And the Chicago Blockchain Project is a trusted resource building Chicago to be the blockchain capital of the world. Join us at the Voice of Blockchain, where Franklin and I are going to be September 30th and October 1st.
Yes, indeed. I'm very excited for it.
Okay, so let's get started. Franklin, you've been on our webinar series before, but let's start with you just telling us a little bit about yourself and your project and any news you might have coming up at Consensus on Monday.
Yes. Yes, so my name is Franklin Fitch, head of marketing at Beaxy Exchange. We're an upcoming exchange platform, which, as Judy just mentioned, we are actually launching, beginning the launch process at Consensus. And so in basically the days following Consensus, we will be live. This is a 2-year journey for us. It's been a long time coming, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but we're very excited to have gotten to the point that we're at. So many things have kind of come to pass recently, big increases in funding and new developments on the exchange side. So really excited about where we're at. And I think we're launching into, all things considered, a really great set of circumstances, given some of the recent developments in the community. So really excited about the launch and hope to see everyone check us out. If you want to learn more, you can visit Beaxy.com.
All right, awesome. Okay, so today we're talking about market research and branding hacks. So I think we should start by just talking about why is branding so important to community? What do you see as the importance, and then why is market research important?
Yeah, so branding is something I've been passionate about for many years. I actually did my master's thesis on the use of narrative and branding. And so it's something I really have always believed really is an extremely important part of the marketing mix. I think the reason branding itself is important is because it's the symbol of what your brand represents, right? And I think people attach themselves to symbols quite easily. There's a field of study in psychology called heuristics, which is basically mental shortcuts. And it's been proven that brands can kind of elicit, reactions through a mental shortcut that people may have. And you kind of skip maybe some of the more rational thinking of an individual. And so, rather than always be talking about features, always be talking about value propositions, you can kind of build a brand that elicits a lot of those things implicitly. So just seeing that symbol. And so I think if you're looking at building a community, if you're looking at, creating a business that's successful, that's going to be a really important part of it is there some immediately recognizable shape or, logo or something like that that's associated with your brand. And does your brand have a set of defined qualities that shape or logo or symbol will bring up for people? And so, it's equally as important to have that symbol or that thing that people can relate to, as it is to have things that are relatable. So a set of maybe 3 or 4 brand pillars that whenever someone sees that, they say, oh, aha. For Beaxy, it's like, oh, we're community oriented, we're transparent. We also use our 3 S's: security, service, superior tech. So ideally, we've kind of made it so that when someone sees the Beaxy logo, the Beaxy badger, that association comes up for them. And then market research is, that was my career prior to joining Beaxy. And I'm obviously a big believer in the need to gather data and understand people's opinions and desires and needs. Your target audience obviously is out there online having conversations. They're having conversations in real life. And there's a lot of really meaningful insight in those conversations. So, if you're looking at doing maybe some social media analysis, you can find some great things in there. And then polling is obviously great. There's so many different things within market research that are valuable and important methods. But the whole idea of all of those things is to understand your target market, or understand opportunities to get outside of your current market and get into new markets. It also helps you build your product as kind of a implicit part of that. if the target market wants more advanced order types, that gives you direction. That gives your developers direction. So you can go to your devs and you can say, hey, we've talked to people and we know that the stop loss take profit order is the most desired. So prioritize that. Move that ahead in your development curve, right? There's so many important parts of market research. I wouldn't even be able to summarize them all on this call, but those are some of the things that I think stand out.
Okay, so let's start with market research, because that seems to be sort of how we start, how you start to think maybe even about your brand. Traditional branding companies we've all seen do focus groups, pretty expensive pretty expensive methods for doing market research, which are all valuable, but again, expensive.
Right.
What would you suggest to someone who doesn't have that kind of budget, which is probably most of the people on the webinar?
Yeah, I mean, crypto projects should really be operating in a lean manner. What I've seen a lot of is, projects that'll raise millions of dollars and then blow through it all so quickly. The anecdote that I use is, they'll raise a bunch of money and then they'll hire a staff of 100 people at generous salaries in a Western country, and all of a sudden, whoops, the money's gone. So you really have to look at being lean in every facet of your business. And market research is no different. I've seen firsthand in my previous job how expensive market research can be. Companies, big companies, I won't name names because I probably shouldn't, but spending, millions of dollars on on their budget. It's crazy. It's like, are you getting anything out of that even? The problem with the big companies too is, are you turning insights into action? And so rarely do they do that. Maybe they get great insights. So they spend $1 million and they get amazing insights, but then bureaucracy and other aspects of the size of their company or their inability to take action means that those insights are relatively meaningless, and then they just wasted $1 million. So I think that if we're looking at lean methods, social media is a really good one, right? It kind of goes back to that point that I just made of there's conversations happening, right? And you look at data gathering, you can either pay people to give you the data or you can just go find the data yourself, right? So there's also really low cost social media analysis tools. Sentiment is a bit of a shady metric, but you can start to look at sentiment. I really like advocacy by comparison. I think advocacy is a much better metric. It's slightly different in the way the linguistics work, but instead of I like, it's I would recommend, right? I would recommend is a very strong sentence. So you start to look at conversations around recommendation. And this can be so simple as literally being free. You can go to Twitter. Twitter's search feature will allow you to search for certain keywords. So you look at conversations where someone is recommending your brand or a brand similar to yours, right? Just by a standard query in Twitter. And you see what is associated with that, right? So often they'll say, I would recommend blank because of blank, right? So that because of blank part can become really meaningful for your brand. And this is quite literally free. You can spend a couple hours on Twitter. You can do some querying. You can try and find what those things are that are leading people to recommend your brand. So that's one example of a way that you can get a lot of insight, and you can do it for quite literally zero cost. So I'm a big believer in that, finding those conversations that people are having. The other aspect that I think Beaxy has relied on, and that's been tremendously important for us, is building a community. So because we have built a community, we actually just passed 4,000 members.
Oh,
super
awesome.
proud of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in Discord, which we've talked, I'm a big believer in Discord.
Yeah.
But be it Telegram, wherever, and I'll give an example of why I think Discord's better for market research, for example. You have emojis, right? A green up arrow and a red down arrow. So you could say in Discord, you could tag everyone in your Discord, which now for us is a sample of over 4,000 people. Only about 500 are active daily on any given day. But still, that's a robust sample. You're statistically significant over samples of 500. 500 is that level of you can actually be confident about what's going on. And so we've actually done this before. You put a question there, and then you actually have people use the emojis to vote on what they want to do. And so even polling itself need not cost you any money. Another great example is Twitter polls. I really like running Twitter polls. Now, obviously, you have to consider the bias of your sample, right? Twitter is a unique audience. And if it's your own community, you're not getting outside perspectives on your market necessarily. Right. If you really want outside perspectives, I think that might be a case where you might want to pay a little bit of money to get some outside perspectives, whether it's expert opinions, or, you know, whether you actually get a focus group, like you said, and you make that representative of maybe target markets that are not currently in your community or not ones that you can quite get right now, or you do some paid polling, you know, things like that. So I think those are a couple different ways that you can get really great insight. And I would just reiterate, like, just ask people, you know, like that's the thread here. You know, there's so many means for which you can just go ask. If it's someone whose opinion you want, just go ask them. Shoot them a DM on Twitter, tag them in a post, you know, create a tweet that says, what do you think about this, framed up for a general audience, run a poll, you know, build a good community that you can then rely on for market research, and leverage social data, because those conversations are out there and you don't have to pay for the data. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So I like especially your idea or what you were saying about I would recommend and your company.
yes.
So really,
Yep.
that's cool. I'll have to use that. That's a great idea.
Yep.
All right. So we've talked about a lot of things that you tried that worked well. Is there anything you tried that maybe you thought would work well that didn't work well, or?
Yeah, let me think about that, you know, because this was one of those questions that's a bit more tricky, right? And, you know, I think this question is interesting because I'll respond to it this way. I would encourage people to keep an open mind. I wouldn't worry about something not working or something failing. You want to go into marketing, I think, with the mentality of I'm going to give everything a shot. I would rather take every risk than zero risks. You know, I would rather try everything than try nothing. So I think you as much as, yes, there are things that didn't quite work out for us, I wouldn't want to spend too much time harping on them, because I would want people to keep that mentality of I should just go out there and try as many different things as possible. I mean, we've had similar conversations about this. I think marketing is equal parts art and science. I think it's an inherently very creative profession, because science is creative as is art, right? So, you know, I encourage people to be very creative. Even if you feel like something might not work, it might be the biggest idea that you've ever had. So go out there and just take some risks and try some things, you know, rather than parse out what, you know, is you think may or may not work. Go out there and take those risks and see for yourself.
Yeah, and I guess really what you're saying is it's not very expensive. It's really, you know, your time, but it's not very expensive to try a bunch of things. That's a great thing about
exactly. You know, I love that quote. It's like move fast and break things, you know. Fail quickly and fail upward, right? Those are ways that I live my life. If you're gonna fail, move fast, you know, like just try it, go hit it, and if it fails, move on to the next thing, you know. So I think even some of our greatest successes had failures within them, and so, you know, you're gonna have, with big ideas, I think you'll have struggles, but you should kind of just persevere through that and deal with the failure as well as the success in kind. So
awesome. All right. So a community manager's done their market research. They've gone out, they've understood the community. They kind of have a sense. We haven't really talked about this, but a lot of people use market research, especially in the beginning, to kind of help define the brand or get the community behind the brand. So now you have all this research. Kind of tell me about how you think about branding, your pillars, like you talked about, and the logo.
Right. So Beaxy was an interesting example of, you know, we picked this badger looking logo that also kind of looks like a bull a little bit. And I think it embodies some of those memes that exist in crypto, which is the honey badger. Bitcoin's described as the honey badger. So this, you know, goes back to that thought of really, you do start with an understanding of the community. You know, you start with that research, you start with that digging to see what are some things I might be able to latch onto. So that's one of the first insights with branding, is like, attach yourself to something, attach yourself to an idea, right? Think about what that idea is that you want your business to be associated with. And we actually had some pretty vehement disagreements, you know, at Beaxy early on about what we wanted the brand to represent. I wanted the brand to be a bit roguish. You know, I look at brand archetypes, which is one of my favorite things to work with. And I wanted us to be the maverick or the rogue, depending on which, you know, 12-pointed star you look at. And so that was my vision of Beaxy, because I kind of saw us coming in, you know, from a different angle than other people. You know, we were doing things pretty radically different than others. And so it was like, all right, well, you know, let's embody that. Let's represent that. Let's make that something that we hang our hat on. Others wanted us to be a little bit more welcoming and friendly, and so even when we later ran like a logo design contest, we had some pretty serious disagreements internally over which one was right for Beaxy, and we ended up not changing the logo because of that. And I did actually think our original logo, was pretty spot on to what we all kind of commonly agreed upon. But, that's one aspect of it is, find something that is meaningful. So to go back to the meme thing, there's this idea, this was an early thing with Bitcoin, like honey badger don't care. They call Bitcoin the honey badger because it just runs through things. It's just, moves forward without regard. And so I thought that idea of the honey badger was actually, it kind of fit that maverick, because they're like the maverick of the animal kingdom, right? They're roguish, they're aggressive, they do their own thing. They can't be taken down, And so I thought it was like, that's pretty cool for Beaxy. I think, so that was one of the very first things I thought, like, yeah, I wanted us to have an animal, something that could kind of be a mascot. I hadn't really seen mascots be used much in crypto. And that has permeated every aspect of Beaxy now, the badger, right? So we actually, for a while, we're calling certain members of our community badgers, as like the, more productive super user type members of the community. And, it's actually been incorporated into memes and a variety of different things. It's given people another point of relation to the brand. So I think in that sense, it's really significant. And then, it's whenever you hear someone talking about a badger in crypto, hopefully now you also think of Beaxy. So when I think of branding, it's like, consider personification for sure. Think about the archetype that you want your brand to represent, and do some research into that.
Yeah, I'm not sure everyone knows what an archetype is. So can you talk a little bit more about that? I know there are plenty of resources online that we could share with everyone, but if you could just describe what that is, that'd be great.
Definitely. Yeah. This came from the work of Carl Jung. So he was obviously one of the most eminent psychologists ever. And he, in his analysis of many, many thousands of patients, he kind of came to this realization that everyone in the stories that they tell are fitting into roughly 12 groups. So there's like the lover, the maverick, the magician, the hero, the everyman, and there's all these different ideas, which he called archetypes, that kind of bundle up, people's qualities into groups. And I've found a lot of significance in this, this kind of work. I was a big fan of mythology growing up, so this really, that's part of mythology. It's baked in there.
Oh yeah.
And there's two great books that I would recommend on this. One is The Myth of the Birth of the Hero by Otto Rank, who was a pupil of Sigmund Freud's. And the other one is by Joseph Campbell, who's considered like the father of comparative mythology. And it's called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. It's so good. I'm currently rereading it. And they basically break down these ideas and give you concrete examples of them and show that all stories have one common structure and theme, which I think is really important. That, to me, that's the core of marketing, is storytelling, right? And so what are the greatest stories ever? They're myths, right? So if you want to be a great storyteller, you really should look at mythology and understand that stuff. And now, the current meta, this has actually really become popular in marketing and branding. You know this, right? So the use of archetypes to align your brand with. And I think it's an extremely helpful thing to do, is because it, rather than sit there and try and carve out for yourself a unique space, think about the 12 spaces that are most commonly occupied by anything, that involves a story. And that is a great way to start to, chart a path for your brand, is saying, okay, I think this archetype, let's say it's the magician, this kind of creative, transformative force is what our brand is. And then there's all these power words and things that kind of, you can find so many different websites on this that'll break this stuff down for you.
Yeah.
But it really helps you understand your brand, crystallize what it is, find new words to describe it. And I think you'll become much better at copywriting and producing material on your brand because of this. So.
Yeah. So we're an explorer.
The Explorer. Yeah. And we've talked about that, and it's such a good fit.
Yeah.
It's such a good fit for you guys.
And you guys settled up with Maverick, or are you still
Well, I mean, it was, frankly, I just kind of chose it anyway. So I think it
Yeah,
fits the best. I mean, and our community embraces that idea of like, you know, we're Beaxy and
makes
like, we
sense.
don't
Yeah,
give a damn what you think, you know, like we're doing it our way. Because that's what we wanted to do from the beginning, was do it our way, do it
yeah,
better, but our way, you know, so that is kind of what we squared up with. And it's got a little bit of hero, it's got a little bit of explorer in there too.
yeah,
And I would just, that's maybe another point that's worth making is, don't feel like you got to fit only in your bucket, right? Every brand is going to represent many things, right? A brand is a big collection of people and ideas and energy, and it'll overlap with some other archetypes. And don't run from that. You know, that's, I don't think people should stray from that. Let that happen when it's natural, but pick the one that you think you most align with and start to build yourself around that.
so we talked about symbols, the badger, and the archetype. Is there anything else people should think about as they think about branding?
Yeah, I mean, you know, going back to the pillars, we kind of touched on that briefly.
Right, right, right.
A great brand has really three pillars. For Beaxy, it's security, service, superior tech are the ones that we've gone back to. Those are a little bit more functional, right? So this is also an important understanding of, there's functional pillars and then there's like ideas that you are
Yeah,
anchored to. So we also look at community, you know, we also look at transparency, and we also look at kind of a holisticness with Beaxy, because you know, that's why we describe ourselves as an all-in-one exchange. It was like, there's all these different things happening in crypto that, you know, especially with exchanges, that may be good. And let's pull all the good stuff together and make that Beaxy. And then add a bunch of new stuff that makes us really one of a kind. So that one of a kind, all-in-one idea is captured within the holisticness. Transparency, we wanted to be face up, playing with our cards face up, you know, be honest with people about where we're at and what we're doing. And then community, just build a community, and really orient yourself completely around that. So those are three of our more idealistic pillars. But I think I would recommend for people to have a set of ideas, three ideas that you're anchored to. And your archetype work is going to really help with that. Doing that archetype work will maybe even do this for you. You don't even have to think about it, because those words that are associated with the archetypes can become your brand words, your brand ideas. And then also have three functional pillars. Like, these are the three things we're going to nail, right? Superior tech for us is the advanced order types and the matching engine, you know, which is fundamentally better than anything in crypto. Service, you know, we want to be serving customers, serving users, and really doing so with priority. Security, right? That was the third S that I missed.
don't forget security.
Yeah, I know. It's especially in light of recent news.
Yes,
So
important
we,
first.
you know, and Art Talk actually just said to me moments ago before we started, that we are the only exchange that has multi-sig wallets, which is like, what the hell, you know, that seems like a little thing, right? That exchanges could do, but we did it because it aligns with our values. It's what we knew we wanted to do. So we didn't skimp on security. We really, I think, went overboard, like probably super secure, almost too secure. Can't really be too secure, but you get the
Yeah.
idea. So I guess to sum all that up, like, your archetype work is going to really help with this. You want to have those three ideas, and you want to have those three functional pillars, and then those things become what your brand rests on.
So how do you know how successful you are with your brand? Do you measure it in any way?
Yeah, so this is one where I'm going to go a bit off the beaten path here. I'm going to be the maverick here. I actually don't worry about measurement as much as a lot of other people do. What I would rather do is build culture and build intangibles, you know, focus on community growth. So if there's one metric that I really harken back to, it's community growth. Obviously, I look at things like registered users and, you know, how many are completing KYC and what our social impressions are. You know, those are the metrics I refer back to most often. You know, if I'm sending an email, I might look at open rates and things like that. So obviously there's your core metrics. I'm not saying I disregard metrics. You know, I came from a metrics background, but I really don't. I look more at how it feels. How does it feel to be in the community today, right? What's our activity level in general channel? So these things they can be distilled down and measured in many ways, but I don't worry so much about that, because if it feels right, then I know I'm on the right track, right? If I'm getting good sentiment or kind of a general vibe from Discord that feels good that day, that's when I'm most happy. because you've created something, you know, that's the true creative part.
Yeah.
Driving numbers is the science part. You can measure, you can cut, you can slice, you can do different things and to understand and dissect it. But the feeling is the art of marketing. So it's, for me, it's more about how does this feel on any given day? What's the general vibe like? Is it feeling good? Do we feel like we're moving forward? You know, so that is what I put the most importance on, actually. And same thing with social. You know, our tweets have been killing it lately. I think we figured out like the hack to make every tweet do significantly better than average. But I don't, that's not interesting to me anymore. That's not creative to me anymore because there's a formula to it. So for me, it's more like, how do I change the dialogue now? How do I influence the conversation? How do I make new participants join the conversation? And how does that feel when that happens? So that's a lot of what I've been focused on recently, is more the feeling of it, which is an abstract concept, I know, but I would really encourage people to start to appreciate that and get a sense of that. Be in the weeds, you know, dig in and feel it. Know for yourself what it feels like to be in the community, and put yourself in the mind of someone who's coming to your social channel and start to try and think that way.
And so does that help you to say, yes, we were right with the symbols that we chose? Yes, we're right with our brand pillars?
Yes, it most certainly does. It most certainly does. And it should always tie back to that stuff. I mean, you know, your brand is an anchor, you know, it's the lighthouse on the shore for you that makes sure you don't crash on the rocks. And so when you're looking at that sentiment, you know, you're analyzing the conversation around your brand in whatever channel makes sense for you. You really want to, you really want to measure, is that aligning with our pillars? Where are we at? You know, and so I often will put out emails that aren't about, you know, I don't really care about the ROI on them. I don't really care about the click-through rate. I don't really care about how many people they're driving to our Discord or to sign up. I'm just reinforcing our pillars, you know? So I did a big email a couple weeks back on security, and it was like, hey, here's everything we're doing to keep your funds secure. And I didn't care about the ROI on that email necessarily. The ROI is, are we reminding people of our pillars? You know, are we driving home who we are as a brand? So I think that's really important. Don't sit there and squeeze ROI out of every little thing. Sometimes just do the right thing because it's the right thing. Remind people who your brand is. Remind people what's going on, what your pillars are. You know, and you can be extremely blunt about this. I want to emphasize that too. You know, it's not like this secret thing that only we know what our pillars are or only we know what our brand is. I mean, again, that goes back to transparency. If you want to be a transparent brand, play that face up. Be like, hey guys, we're Beaxy. These are the things that make us Beaxy. Let's tell you a little bit more about them, right? I mean, I'm a huge fan of that face up approach. People respond super well to that, especially in crypto.
Yeah, that's awesome. So anything else before we go that you'd like to tell people, or thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think I've talked a lot about our Discord, so come check it out. You'll see why I like it. You know, it's if you go to our Twitter at Beaxy Exchange, it's the pinned tweet. You can join there. You know, there's a lot of structure and nuance to what's been done. Our team has worked super hard on it, and there's great conversation happening in there. And you can talk to any of our team members. And I think, you know, you'll probably see what I mean about the importance of community when you join that. And then obviously just keep your eye out for our launch that's coming up in a couple of weeks. Well, less than that now. Gosh, it's right around the corner. So
Monday.
You know, right? Well, no, it'll be right after consensus, because we don't want to launch before and then go to the conference and then not be attending our desks.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes.
So we're doing the block party event. I guess I'll plug that real quick. The block party event. Well, you'll be there with me.
Yeah.
We'll be doing that Monday night, and ton of amazing attendance. It's going to be like a who's who of interesting people in crypto, I think. So I would check that out. If you go to their Twitter at GoBlockParty, you will see the pinned tweet there has a flyer with some information about it. There'll be a great DJ, as I've understood, a great rapper there. I can't say who because I don't know, but I'm sure it's going to be someone interesting. And then, you know, just a bunch of the coolest people from crypto will be there as well. So that'll be exciting. If you want to come meet me personally and meet Judy, we'll be there. Okay,
awesome. All right, great. So thank you so much, Franklin. Thank you for your time. Just to let everyone know, in 2 weeks, we're going to have Amy Vernon, who's a crypto community manager, talk about user content and how you can user-generated content and how that can really help build your community and grow your content. So thanks. See you guys in
Thanks,
2 weeks.
everyone.
Bye.